welcome to his garage. Here we have them, the NSC brothers, the Honda Vision in its two sizes, as far as I can understand. Let's put this thing aside. The 50cc version and the 110cc version, and as you can see, there aren't that many differences in between these two bikes. They are very, very similar indeed. But, well, let's think now a little bit of history first. I think they were launched around 2012. I think the bike is kind of global, so it might vary from market to market and so on. Which came first, I don't know. But in Europe, and especially up in the north, this 50cc version is quite popular because you can run it on a rather basic license, or with a rather basic driving license. So here it is even restricted to 45 km per hour. Now the 110cc makes about twice that, around 90, I would say. Comfortably you can ride it around 80, 90, then you're pushing it a bit. Now of course the 45 km per hour version you can de-restrict. Yeah, you know, there's another video about that. Of course it runs, it's a nicer bike if you de-restrict it. It doesn't really hit the rev limiter like that, and you can cruise a bit more easily around kind of 50 or so. And a lot of people think it's kind of cool that the 50cc moped, this moped scooter, is in a way a 110cc design, which it is. The difference isn't all that big. So the engines kind of look the same. This one is then 49 or 50cc and 108 or 110. As far as I understand, it's the board that is about 12 millimeters larger on that one, and the stroke is 11 millimeters longer, so that gives you the difference. And okay, this one is rated at some 3 kilowatts. I think that's somewhere between close to 4 horsepower, and that's kind of a bit of a 8 horsepower bike. So yeah, sure, the power is kind of double. The muffler is accordingly a bit larger on the 110cc bike. As you can see, also the front wheels are different. This bike runs on 14-inch both ends. This one runs with a 16-inch in the front and still the 14-inch at the rear. But the whole bike is higher. And of course you get an inch extra with this swap of front wheel. But at the rear it's not that obvious, but the whole bike is higher. And why they have done this, I don't know. Maybe they think that it's more kind of kids that run around on the 50cc, I don't know. But the 110cc, well, it could be also that they want a bit more stability at higher speed. I think the gyro effect of the front wheel would be a little bit bigger or a little bit better. So the rear end, as far as I've been able to see, they have just put on a longer shock absorber, spring and shock absorber at the rear, which is roughly an inch taller in a way. But from a kind of cosmetical perspective, they are so similar. And yeah, model years. This is a model year 14 bike, that's a model year 16 bike. This one, I'm not sure if this one is for sale anymore. I can't see it if I look at the Honda website or in this local area. So maybe this 50cc is discontinued. Okay, I can agree to some degree that yes, it is. Well, for instance, a lot of other scooters in the 50cc range, they get lots of updates and you know, details that might make it look a bit more modern, one could say. Which never Honda really got into. They just made the bike and then they've been selling it and maybe changing the color or something. So you know, maybe that's where they lost track of it in a way. But the 110cc is still on sale around here, but it's been updated. The engine is updated. I think it has what you call it, auto on and off. When you stop, it stops and so on. There are some minor cosmetical changes. You know, the ignition lock is different, so there's quite a few changes on the new bike, or the latest model year of the 110cc. Then about pricing, well, I would say that they are kind of equal in pricing, these bikes. Around here there are more 50cc bikes around. Prices are typically like 100 euros per model year, I could say it like that. So maybe a 14 would be like 1400 euros, and a model year 19, I think it's the last one, then it's maybe asking price 1900 euro. But you know, it depends a lot on wear and tear and mileage and things like that. The 110cc is not that popular. I know some that commute with it, but well, I mean, if you look at this bike as if it was a motorcycle, then it's ridiculous. I mean, taking this out on the highway, then my god, trucks are passing you, and it's kind of almost awful, I would say, to ride this thing on the motorway, unless you change the variator on this bike too. I know that over in Asia there are custom-made variators for this bike. I remember some guy that he texted me or wrote in the comments on some other NSC or Honda Vision video that they make a different variator that takes the speed up for this thing to, I don't remember what did he write, 110, 120 kilometers per hour, something like that. So yes, you can make this one a bit quicker if you want to. Now, what I found a bit uncomfortable with this bike is that the engine is just enlarged, and it's I mean, these are cheap bikes, cheap designs or simple designs, so there's no counterbalancing measures or something on that one, as far as I understand. Absolutely no extra balance shaft or something, so this bike shakes a bit. Now, if you're just going 20 minutes to the nearest town or something, then it doesn't matter. But I rode this bike for well over an hour, and then it was a bit chilly also, not a sunny nice day like this, so my fingers got a bit numb, so I didn't really like that. But just going for short little trips here and there, or yeah, you know, then it's fine, it works. Now, I know that someone seems to be running successfully with the ECU from the fuel injection and ignition from this bike on this kind of bike. I haven't tried that myself, but maybe I should give it a try. But then you also get rid of the rev limiter, which I don't really find to be a problem on this bike, because this one now makes like 59 or 60 or something, just because of the change in gear ratio or change of variator. Now taking it even higher, okay, I don't really see the need for that, but if you want to, yeah, sure. Now, where were I? Yeah, considering this to be a motorcycle is a bit ridiculous almost, but if you consider this to be a moped, then it's kind of fun. I mean, having a 8 horsepower moped, that's kind of cool in a way. But of course, yes, you have to have, you can't really ride around like that, because then you're doing really illegal stuff, and I wouldn't really advise that. And I think that around here, taking a driver license for this bike compared to taking a driver license for this bike, it's 3 times the price to take a driving license for this bike. I think this one is right 500-600 euros. This is probably between 1500 and 2000 euro, which is kind of the value of the bike. So then in terms of insurance, might vary from country to country, but having a full coverage insurance on this one is more expensive than for this one, because this bike is typically ridden by, you know, people like me, older men. This one is ridden by 15-year-olds, so you know, more things happen to this. Now, other differences, well, of course the gear ratio is different inside the hub, I would think. I don't know how much the variator as such is different. Some other small difference that I've noted is that in here there are small position lights, so when you see this bike coming, you will see 3 lights, the headlight and 2 position lights. In this 50cc version, that should be of course a bit cheaper, then those position lights are just taken away. But for instance, the brakes and so on, as far as I've been able to see, they seem to be the same. And the brakes then, of course, on this bike is then made for taking this bike down from like the highway speed to 0 in quite a good way, but it makes 45 if you run everything as it was designed, or left the factory. So of course this is for being a moped, then this is quite a robust design, I must say. Now, what is not so good, I mean, if you're out shopping for these bikes, what do you need to think about or take an extra look at? I would say that the most important thing is have the bike been, let's say, outdoor a lot. I shouldn't say outdoor, but has it been ridden in salt, for instance? Then these bikes really start to suffer. If it's been out on salt, then what can happen? You can get, I've seen corrosion, not really damages, but for sure quite a bit of corrosion on the frame as such, down there and underneath, and you know, it's a cheap design, so it's not made to be run in salt. It's as simple as that. Now I can imagine that if the bike is outdoor kind of all its life, then I think it will also start to suffer with rain and so on. But what have I seen more? Okay, the frame can start to corrode. The chrome on the front suspension, on the fork, the chrome there can start to corrode, and if it starts to corrode, it will start to corrode where there is no stroke, or whatever you should say, no travel. But if that starts to get worse, then it will creep down, and you will ruin the seals in the fork, and you have to get a new fork, of course, or at least the fork legs. So that's also something to take a look at. It's not all that easy to see, but you have to take a flashlight or something underneath here, or take this thing off, and then you will see if there have been corrosion that has started on that chrome. The same goes for the chromed pistons in the brake. If you look at the brake pad video, you could see that when the bike has been out, you know, kind of 7-8 years and been into some occasional salt, then those pistons will corrode, and if it's severe, then you have to get new pistons for sure, maybe a whole new caliper. I don't know how they sell the spare parts. Then what else? There's one more thing that can corrode. The bracket, the muffler or the silencer is not that advanced in its design, and they have welded on some brackets, and there are kind of double plates, and especially on the inside the bracket can just disappear. So take an extra look, poke a bit with a screwdriver or something, and take a look there. I mean, there will be a hole eventually, so should be a bit careful with that. And on this bike that is ridden much more than that one, I've of course sprayed it quite a bit with linseed oil and so on. So and I've done the same with the frame. That bike is just kind of in the garage for the fun of it, so it's only seeing the sun every now and then. Well, what's more about this bike? The engine, is it any reliable? I think it's fairly reliable. I haven't opened that one up on the cylinder head to check the valves and so on, but this one has done, what is it, 11,000 kilometers something, and when I checked the valve clearance there was no issue at all. As soon as we got this bike home, we changed the oil, and the old oil seemed to be reasonably young, one could say. So, and there's also another guy that wrote something on a comment, I think it was on the service video, that I've done 90,000 kilometers on my bike, so the engine seems to be really reliable, unless there is production variation or something. But I mean, there's just one thing: if you neglect the engine and kind of never change the oil, then you will probably get into trouble, because there's no air filter. No, not air. There's air filter for sure, but there's no oil filter really. There's just a little, what you call it, strainer, some little metal mesh that just kind of takes away, I don't know what, stones. I mean, okay, if you open that thing to check the oil, then of course you should clean it first, and you might get a bit of sand in there if you're not paying attention. But this little strainer or whatever filter, it doesn't remove any sand. So frequent oil changes, that's key to keep these engines running for many kilometers. But again, 90,000 kilometers on a bike, that's good, really good. Now then, there's this weird paint on the on the moped. I've never seen this dull paint on the 110cc version, and not on this market, but around here this dull paint is quite common. I would say really common. Okay, it's not easy to respray a glossy paint, but a dull paint, how do you do that? Well, I've made a little video about what to use, at least, not really how to sand and so on. I mean, that's something you will have to learn, but there is an aftermarket paint that matches this one extremely well. Well, I don't know if maybe you can't see it. This thing I've resprayed at home with just cans and stuff, and it looks the same. So the dull coating, or the dull paint, because it is a wet paint, it's not something that is in molded or something, it is a wet paint. That one you can do. Just take a look at another video that I've done. So one doesn't have to be scared for this dull painted bike. Ah, well, I think that's about it for these bikes. I like them. I think they're funny. So if you're interested, go and try one. I think you will like it. And that's all from Hoist Garage today. Take care. Bye bye.